It's time for Strange Stories. The following is based on research that I conducted with library resources. These included several books on cinema history which I found on the shelves, one audiobook that I accessed online, periodicals from the Public Library's EBSCOhost account, and online sources which I carefully evaluated. The silent film era had many talented actors who excelled during the golden age of the silent era, but faded with the introduction of sound in movies. One of these talents was the vaudevillian actor Buster Keaton. He was born in 1895 as Joseph Keaton to a family of traveling vaudeville performers. He earned the nickname Buster after the illusionist Harry Houdini witnessed him falling down a flight of stairs. Known for his athletic stunts, blank facial expressions, and absurdist storylines, Keaton was one of the most famous actors of the silent era, and often erroneously compared to Charlie Chaplin. For nearly 10 years, like many other silent film stars, Keaton enjoyed near-complete creative control over his film projects, but the star burned out in the late 1920s. In 1926, Buster Keaton released one of his most spectacular and expensive works of cinema, The General. The General takes place during the American Civil War. It's about a railroad engineer named Johnny Gray, and his train is called The General. Johnny has two loves in his life, his train and a woman named Annabelle Lee. Union spies steal his train to disrupt the supply chain to the south. The spies also kidnap Annabelle Lee. Now, Johnny must do a daring rescue mission behind enemy lines to save both his train and Annabelle Lee. The General is loosely based on events that occurred in 1862, called the Great Locomotive Chase, or the Andrews Raid. During the Great Locomotive Chase, a Union spy named James Andrews led a raid to steal a Confederate train, ride the train to the north, and burn bridges between Atlanta, Georgia, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. This would disrupt the supply chain and allow the Union to advance on Chattanooga, and make it impossible for Confederate reinforcements to arrive. Andrews was caught and executed. The Great Locomotive Chase had the makings of a great heist, action, or spy thriller, but not likely a comedy. Nevertheless, Buster Keaton made The General into a slapstick comedy. Moreover, 21st century audiences may think it was a strange decision to tell a comical, and arguably glorified, story from the Confederacy's point of view. The General also contains Keaton's iconic, death-defying stunts, all performed with his signature emotionless look on his face. He never used a stunt double. While filming The General, he also strove for authenticity and hired 500 extras from the Oregon National Guard to play Civil War soldiers. Keaton even acquired 3 real locomotives on which he performed his dangerous stunts. At one point, sparks from one of the train's engines caused a forest fire, delaying production for 6 weeks. During these suspenseful chase scenes, 2 separate trains ran on parallel tracks. The crew mounted a camera to one train to film Keaton on the other train, as he absurdly operated a locomotive all by himself, while climbing and jumping from one car to another. The film's most expensive scene depicts a locomotive engine falling from a broken bridge and crashing into a river. How could such special effects be possible in 1926? The answer is simple. It wasn't a special effect. It was a real train wreck. To film this train wreck, the crew built a 215-foot wooden bridge over a river. In the scene, Union soldiers are aboard a train called the Texas, and they are pursuing our hero played by Buster Keaton. Looking as serious as usual, Keaton sets fire to the bridge. As their train is speeding across the burning bridge, the bridge collapses, and the train falls and crashes into the river below. Thousands of locals gathered to watch it crash into the river. The train remained there until World War II, when it was salvaged for scrap metal. It was the most expensive shoot in the silent era, costing $42,000 US, and The General was the most expensive film of its time. The General was a financial and critical failure. The film cost $750,000 US, but only earned less than $500,000 at the box office. Not only did the film capture an actual train wreck on film, but audiences at the time also viewed Buster Keaton's now classic film as a total train wreck. Robert Sherwood, a film critic and World War I veteran, said, quote, "Someone should have told Buster that it is difficult to derive laughter from the sight of men being killed in battle." End quote. Remember, The General was released in the mid-1920s, only 60 years after the Civil War, and only 8 years after the end of World War I, which people very clearly remembered. In 1928, Buster Keaton signed a contract with MGM, and consequentially he lost the creative control he once held over his films. Also, in the late 1920s, large film studios took more control over how movie production was funded, making it more complicated for Keaton to film another ambitious and expensive project like The General. It is strange to imagine that, given more creative authority over his own work, Buster could have thrived during the era of sound in movies. Instead, his bright career faded, he started drinking heavily, and he drifted into depression and poverty. Buster Keaton's work did not get the credit that it deserved until decades later. His career saw a resurgence in the 1950s with several appearances on television and in film. He very briefly appeared in the film Sunset Boulevard in 1950. He was also cast in Limelight, starring alongside Charlie Chaplin. Buster Keaton died in 1966. In 2007, the American Film Institute released a list of the top 100 movies of all time. In a strange, ironic twist, they ranked The General at number 18. That is all for now. Special thanks to Gregor Kendall for his recording of Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. Other sounds and music were provided by Internet Archive and freesound.org with Creative Commons licenses. Thank you for listening.